All right, guys, welcome to episode 1 of Real Estate Conversations with Harsh, where we'll be discussing commercial real estate, mostly on the real estate investing side. And today, as part of episode 1, we have Nick Skalkos from Halifax. And
hello, everyone.
Hello. And we will be discussing a little bit about Halifax market, the US and Canadian markets, because Nick, as an investor, he owns approximately 250 units in US and Canada. And so we'll be discussing a little bit about the US and Canadian markets, how it's different, how the corp structures are different, and getting some tips and advices on capital raising. So Nick, here we are. And just to let everyone know, Nick has been a musician for most of his life, and he turned into a real estate investor from a musician. So that's like two industries that are a lot apart. So we'd like to hear more about Nick's story now. So Nick, we'd love to hear how you got transitioned and just a little bit background on your music and how did you like move into the real estate industry and what made you move? So basically, what's your why to move here, right?
Yeah, thank you, Harsh. Congratulations on this podcast. I am thrilled to be your first guest. Yeah. So I thank you for thinking of me and having me on here. And I wish you nothing but success. So
thank you so much.
Yeah. So my story is I come from immigrant parents from Greece. My brothers and sisters, for the most part, were born there. And my parents came here for work. Unfortunately, my household was very volatile. And at one point, the neighbors were just getting tired of hearing all the fighting coming from my house, and they just kept calling the police. So at one point, we had neighbors intervene between my mom and my dad. Unfortunately, my father was rather abusive. So we had our neighbors intervene and take us into a shelter for battered women and children when I was about 5 years old. And my mom did her best to raise whatever remaining children she had left. I'm one of 8. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot of my brothers and sisters. They had ran away from home at an early age, unfortunately, due to the circumstances. So unfortunately, I grew up in unfortunate, humble beginnings, is my point. And my mother did her very best to raise us as best she could. And, unfortunately, my mother and my father had passed away decades ago. But my mom did her very best to just give me the best life that I possibly could have. So she gave me her 110% support behind anything that I was doing. And that was all I needed as a kid. So I grew up, having to rely on food banks and having to rely on, Salvation Army for clothes or secondhand clothes. And it was very tough growing up in a welfare housing situation. But at the same time, it was also very fun because I had people from all over the world that were migrating here for whatever reasons. And I was becoming friends with people from Chile, people from Laos, people from Iran. And the cuisine around me was incredible. So I had a great childhood growing up, and I got really into music when I was young. It kind of shut out the noise and it made sense to me. I wanted to be a rock star, and I obsessed with this. And I would put posters on my wall of all of my favorite musicians. And I just became one of them eventually, and I knew I was, and I was manifesting it the entire time. I was like, I'm going to be on that stage one day. So when I was about 14, when I was 12, my brother gave me a guitar, changed my life. And I was really good at drums for some reason, naturally good. It was very strange. So my mom decided to buy me a drum kit, but it wasn't as easy because we were very broke, right? So what she had done is she had an old plastic Coke bottle that kind of came up to her waist, and it was a piggy bank. And every time she got a loonie, she'd put a loonie into it until she saved 1,000 loonies. And we went down to the music store and she got me a drum kit when I was 14. And that was it from there. I was talented immediately. It was very strange. So I started a band, and we were awful, but I didn't give up, and I kept rehearsing and kept getting denied at record labels, kept getting the doors slammed on us in regards to getting shows, and running into hurdles the whole way, but we didn't give up. And 9 years later, after creating this band in high school, we ended up getting signed to EMI Publishing and Universal Records. And we released 3 critical acclaimed albums, and I've toured the world with all my favorite bands. We've had amazing success on video and radio play across Canada. And I've worked with some of the world's most renowned producers. And then it was crazy how things just exploded for me. And then I got into more behind the scenes kind of music stuff. I started doing recording on albums as a professional drummer, and I ended up getting a platinum record with a band called City and Color, who's a large Canadian band here, and which was an amazing accomplishment. I hadn't received a platinum record before, and that was wonderful. I then went on to start producing bands and artists and writing. So I kind of formed into a writer producer, and the last musical thing I did, I was doing commercials for a gas company, and I did the theme song for an HGTV show called Vacation House Rules. And that was it. That's the last thing that I've done musically. I decided to just focus on real estate full time. I still have a music studio. I still love to write and produce, but it's not for money anymore. It's not for commercials or TV or anything. It's just for pure enjoyment. So I put my music days behind me, but it was hard to do at first, you know.
Yes. Wow, phenomenal. Wow, Universal and a platinum. Wow, that's really awesome, right? Somebody like your story did give me some goosebumps. But like especially the platinum records, right? No, I find it because we are in such a competitive world that really only a few get to that acclamation, right? Even if it was 1 or 2, getting there is really, really hard for people, right? And you were able to make it, and not only to Universal Studios, but you were also a platinum acclaimed artist, which is really.
Sir, it's right. I don't know if you have videos right there. That's my platinum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I have other records
really
that I've done. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite the, but that was a lesson in goal crushing, how to crush goals.
Yeah. Absolutely, right? And how visualization for you where you were all like pictures of all the stars and everybody, and then you became one of them. That is really, really awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's a secret to success is you know, who you need to become to do the things you need to do. So
absolutely. So talk about real estate. Like you started in 2016, right?
So great question. So how the hell did I get from rocking these stages across Canada with all these world-renowned bands into real estate investing? What happened there?
Well, and that's on the active side, right? So from like musician, band, and all those kind of things to directly like on the ground, on the field. Yes.
Okay, so why I'm active is because I was a broke musician, and using my own money just simply wasn't an option. So it was, you know, it was how this happened was, this is how this happened. I was in a bungalow in Kitchener, Ontario, and this bungalow had a side entrance. We purchased this bungalow so that we could move in with my mom because she had cancer and I wanted to live with her in her final days. And this house had an in-law suite. So I was like, okay, mom, you can come in. I still charged her rent. It was very reasonable, but she was my very first tenant. You know, it was my first experience. And when she passed away, I turned it into a recording studio, and it was amazing. I made amazing music down there. But I was watching this show at the same time called Income Property with Scott McGilvery. And what he was doing he was doing something different than other HGTV shows were doing. You know, typical HGTV reno show was, you know, renovate it and the couple likes it or they don't like it or they want quartz countertops and something. And to me, it's just like, oh, this is just for privileged people. But the show that I was watching was Scott was going into homes and he was basically helping homeowners that were house poor. They owned this mortgage. Things were getting out of hand. The credit cards were getting out of hand. And I related to that. I was like, I'm house poor right now. And so what he was suggesting is that they turned their basement, which didn't look like much, into a beautiful suite so they can rent it and have someone pay some of the mortgage. And, you know, the basements would turn out amazing. I never would have thought looking at a cellar that you could make it into a unit. So here was someone on TV helping people. And I loved it. I loved the idea of perhaps doing that ourselves. I'm looking around, I'm like, we could do that here. So I thought, well, that's, you know, I don't know how to do that though, right? There's a whole new world to me. And I knew nothing about mortgages. Well, I saw Scott McGilvery was coming to town. So I figured, well, hey, let's just go see what this guy's got to say. And I went to town. I listened to him talk for about 2 hours where he explained how he created wealth through real estate investing with student rentals. He would take his student loan and rather than use it for rent, he would just purchase a property and then rent it out to other students and live for free. And by the time he was 25, he had like 25 rental suites or 25 homes or something like that. It was very impressive. So at that point, he was offering a coaching, educational coaching program. And my wife and I bought it with no money. We couldn't afford it, had to borrow the money, but we committed to this because, and it wasn't even me that decided to further my education in real estate. I was actually very skeptical, but that was because I was comfortable. My life was pretty cool. I had already reserved the fact that I wasn't going to be wealthy because I was a musician and that was the life of a musician. And I had dedicated myself to that. I didn't expect anything. I just wanted to release great art and that was it. Well, my wife went the traditional route, got 2 degrees from notorious, you know, post-secondary education schools and became a teacher. And she hated it. She didn't hate the teaching part. She just hated the politics and everything that came along with it. Yeah. And she wanted out. So she looked at me and was just like, you're doing this thing. I'm going back to work, but you're going to do this thing and you're going to figure this real estate thing out. And I thought, you know what? Okay, I'm in because, well, first of all, I thought you needed money to invest in real estate. Yeah. But after this presentation, I realized that that's not true. That time is just as valuable as money, and you could leverage your time to learn how to invest in real estate. So I was like, well, that's the plan. You go back to work because we need to cover our mortgage still. And I'm going to figure this real estate thing out. I'm going to get coaching. I'm going to do all the programs. I'm going to treat it like school. And I'm going to get that money back that we just dropped on this program because like I have to. Yeah. Failing is not an option. There is no plan B here. This has to work out. So I knew nothing about mortgages. I didn't have a single dime to invest in. So rather than looking at my own money, you know, what did I have to play with? I looked into a community and I looked for opportunities. And I learned how to identify opportunities. And then I learned how to attract partners to partner with on these opportunities. And so I learned basically, essentially how to invest in real estate without using any of my own money, just out of necessity. And in year 1, our plan was to do some burrs where we take a single family home and we add a suite into the basement and we move into the basement and rent out the upstairs. And that was our plan. So that is what we did for the first 5 years. And yeah, then we, you know, if we cashed out on a property, we would invest in maybe in some buy and holds in the Southern Ontario area, some 3-plexes, 4-plexes. I've dabbled in rehabs as well, value adds, but investing in Ontario started getting a little difficult. So I was banging my head up here in Ontario trying to make things work. And in the meantime, I had a realtor in New Brunswick that was giving me off-market deals. And I'm a path of least resistance guy. So I'm just going to go to where things are easier as long as the returns work. And so that's how I got into investing out of province. And when I discovered how to untap investing where returns are best, and as soon as I discovered commercial residential mortgages versus residential mortgages, like, and how easier they were to actually get, the sky was the limit at that point. So you know, those are two key factors: is moving to 5 units and up, because and getting the financing I found easier, and moving out of province, I just found finding the opportunities easier. And then once you find the opportunities, everything else just kind of falls into place. So that's how I got started, from musician, knew nothing about real estate, into real estate. And now I'm happy to report that my wife has since retired, and she's now basically running my business, and she's she wants to get into development. So she's just secured a property out here in Nova Scotia, and she will be building 240 units on this property. So
Awesome. That is
yeah,
what a journey.
yeah.
What a journey you have been through. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's really, really a great journey. Wow. That is incredible. All right. So now you hold assets both in US and Canada combined of around 250 units, right? Which is, again, really great. So
yeah, we have properties in Saskatchewan. We have like smaller multifamilies, like 6 to 12 units.
Mhm.
I'm talking. So we have properties in Saskatchewan, properties in Ontario, properties in New Brunswick, and properties in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
And 144 unit in Houston, Texas.
Wow.
By the way, yeah.
That's the recent purchase that you did, right?
Yeah, we were supposed to close today. We'll see. There's always hurdles.
So we are doing the podcast in the right time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. All right. So no, best of luck for that. That's really, really awesome, because that's like 144 units is a big, and plus Houston, Texas market is like a very, very good. Everybody seems to be really appreciative of that market. So from your perspective, like, you own almost like in 3 or 4 provinces in Canada, the properties, and now you also own in Houston, Texas. What has been the game changer, or what made you move to the US first? And the second part is, like, how do you see the markets? Like, what's the difference between these markets, especially on the Canadian side and on the south of the border in the US, right? Because everybody seems to be now more and more attracted towards the US, especially Texas, one of being the more prominent of all the states in the US, right?
Yeah. So great question. So the main reason why people are interested in investing in Texas is because people are moving there. There's an influx of population. So I saw a compelling map last year, and it was a projections map of population growth in the United States. And there were red dots, there were yellow dots, and there were green dots. The red dots were cities that were depopulizing. There was the population was moving out.
Okay.
And this was mainly the North and the Northeast. So it was Ohio, New York,
Yes.
all the way down the Eastern coast.
Yes.
The yellow dots were medium growth, slow to medium growth, 1-3%, something like that. And these were the Tennessees and the Georgia and those southern eastern states.
Mhm.
When you got down to Florida, it was green dot, green dot, green dot. Clearly, people are flocking to Florida, and we saw that across the southern states, and especially into Texas. Texas had some big green dots too. So that's just a visual map for you and your listeners in regards to where people are moving. They're clearly moving from states like California to Texas. I think Texas saw 1 million Californians move there last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and why they're moving, why people from New York are moving to Florida, why people from California are moving to Texas. I think it's pretty simple. I think COVID changed everything.
Yes.
There's remote work now, which is why I'm where I'm at. I moved out of Ontario and moved to Halifax a year ago, just for waterfront affordability. I couldn't afford where I live now in Ontario. I can work anywhere I want. So this is, a lot of people are experiencing that. And, you know, why stay in New York and pay the kind of taxes that you're paying when you could go to somewhere like Florida and save money? You don't have to deal with snow. It's just tax friendly, you know, business friendly. So we're seeing that. Another huge reason why Texas, especially if you want to compare it to Canadian markets, is just the sheer size of the population, the mixed labor force. You know, I've experienced investing in rural cities in Canada, which I have properties in rural cities in Canada, but the only reason why they're doing okay and why there's a low vacancy rates on these buildings is because the prices, the rental prices and the prices of homes have pushed people out of major cities into more rural areas, which made investing in these areas a safe bet for now. But the truth is that if you're not in a municipality that has over 100,000 people, it's kind of risky. I really do think there are some inherent risks there with investing in a small town, especially if there is no mixed labor force and there's just one major employer and that employer goes under, then you're in trouble. So what the States offers us is an opportunity to get into a really strong market at a price point that is comparable or even lower than some of the market rents.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy. So just to compare, in 2021, we were buying buildings in the New Brunswick area for around 80,000 a door.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're now selling those buildings for 120, 130,000 a door. Wow. And we're picking up property in Texas and major city like Houston for 77K a door. So you're not finding anything for 77K a door up here in Canada. You're especially in a market of over 2 million people with such a mixed labor force. I mean, this property that we have in Houston is a 15-minute drive from the Port of Houston, which employs over 70,000 people. I think it's crazy. Wow. Yeah, so that's like, it's like a little city, and you've got these economies within 15-minute drive of completely airport, you know, lots of major employers. So the problem with investing in the US is that I've only invested in Canada. So I'm like, how do I structure these things? In Canada, I'm doing JV deals because I'm doing 6 to 12 units. Yeah, but this is a new beast.
Next question I was coming to, like, how are you structuring the deals and what's the difference between the Canadian part, where mostly I have also seen shareholder agreement and some people also the GPLP, but in US I've heard like it's completely under the LLC kind of and GPLP kind of thing, which is mostly prevalent in the States. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes, sir. So in Canada, we don't have a lot of financial partners on our deals. So what we do is we'll just do a JV deal with a shareholders agreement where everyone brings collateral to the deal. So everyone is exposed in the event of a default. Yeah. But we're, you know, everyone's got security in the company, and we have a shareholders agreement. And basically, you know, the difference between a JV agreement and an LP is there are two main agreements. The two main differences. The main one being is that the limited partnerships are more lucrative investing tool for wealthy investors because
of the liability, right?
Yeah, it offers a tax flow through for one, and it also limits your liability because you can only lose the amount of money you put in. So if you put in 100K, you can only lose 100K. Whereas if we were to partner together on this building, we could lose more than the money that you put in. We could lose a lot more than that.
Oh yes, because of
there's inherent risk there. Yeah. Right.
The exposure is very, very limited in the LP.
Exactly. Right. So, you know, if you and I are doing a JV deal together, we're friends, we know each other. It's no need to complicate things and make it an LPGP. We can just do a joint venture partnership and have a shareholders agreement. But
Yes.
when you're purchasing 144 unit in a country that's known for people coming after you for litigations and getting sued, I hear it's not a matter of if I'm going to get sued, it's a matter of when, apparently.
Yeah, it's a matter of when.
Apparently. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so this is why I partnered up with my partner, Marcin Drodes, who also owns M1, which is a fantastic real estate educational company. You should
Yes,
check it out.
absolutely.
And so, you know, he's just someone that I feel like I could hitch my wagon to because he's going this way and I want to go that way. And he knows what he's doing. So rather than try and learn, like, how do I invest in the United States? I'm just like, let's partner up together. This is the piece that I bring. Do you need that? He's like, yes, I do. I'm like, fantastic. I get to see how you structure things. I have the peace of mind knowing that you've done this correctly. And the pressure to raise capital isn't all on me as well. I could rest assured that I'm bringing a fantastic deal to investors. I love it. I love it. Let's partner up. So what I've learned is he likes to do things. His structure is probably the most expensive structure you could do. So this probably isn't the structure you're going to use if you're going to buy a couple Airbnbs or maybe a couple 12 units. I don't know, maybe it is. But essentially, high level view is what we're doing is we have a GP and then we have an LP. These are Canadian companies.
Yes.
So investors are investing into the Canadian limited partnership.
Yes.
But then what we'll do is we're going to mirror that on the US side. So we've got that on the US side now.
Yeah.
Now that limited partnership is going to have a master corporation, and that master corporation is going to own the building. So we have a tax flow through. When it gets to the LP, when the money gets to the limited partnership on the American side, we'll sort out the taxes with the IRS and the CRA so that our Canadian limited partnerships or partners don't need to report to the IRA. The IRS rather, they just report to the CRA. Yeah, they get a T5013, I think it is, and that's it. They give that to their accountant for filing, and that's how we do it. So overkill for short-term rentals, probably, but and now that we've opened up the structure to Americans, wow, it's just a big spaghetti. It's like looking at the diagram of our structure is it's nuts. It's nuts.
So let me get it a little simpler for the viewers and the listeners, right? So you have a GPLP in Canada, which is a normal structure, and that LP, then you have a master corporation in the US. So the LP holds the master corporation, or the GP holds the master corporation?
I believe it's the limited partnership. So in the event that things go wrong, the limited partners are they could take over essentially and control that. Yeah.
The master corporation, and the master corporation then holds the asset, and all the flow happens through the master corporation.
In a nutshell, high level overview, that's exactly it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We can't really get into the nitty-gritty of it because then we'll need lawyers and accountants to be on the call who can certify all of that, right?
Yeah.
And just for everyone, people, we're not certified lawyers or not lawyers or certified accountants. So yeah, it's not advice. We are just telling you how Nick is currently functioning and how normally people are structuring the deals. It's not an advice on how you should do it. Please consult an accountant or a lawyer before getting into all of this.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. None of these structures that I have here was me creating them. These were conversations that lawyers and accountants had while I was on the phone, but I wasn't even really a part of the conversation because I could barely hold on to these conversations. But that's the beauty.
Yes.
Is that you can rely on a professional team to
and that's where the partnerships comes in, right? And that's where your point was like, yes, you partnered with Marcin, yes, who's already doing great. He knows what he's doing. So why not partner with him and learn that ways, right? And shorten that amount of like the learning curve, because most people think of doing it themselves all the time, and then they're only about able to reach like this high. But if you really want to go there, then you obviously need somebody who's there who can pull you there, right? that is mostly where partnerships do come in play. And I think you're doing absolutely phenomenal with like now 250 units. It's not a small deal. Like 250 may sound like 250, but that's 250 families that are in those, right? To manage them, 250 doors, to manage buildings across 2 countries, like different provinces and like, let's say 1 state. So in the US, and cross-border accounting, it's not easy, right? It doesn't come easy. There are things that will go wrong for sure. And like you said, that like when, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they will, right? Yeah. So yes, you definitely need some expertise behind to help you with that. And that's where partnerships do come in play. And they really, really help, really, right? And I've seen that too. Plus, it's also, I want to talk about a little about the tips or the advices that you'd like to give the listeners on about how to go about capital raising, because going after 144 units or like a deal of over 100 units is capital intensive, right? It does require capital. It does require someone with a good network who can help you qualify if you are not able to qualify on your own. So you need those people in. So how do you go about, getting in touch with those people or attracting to yourself so that, yes, they are ready to work with you? I know leveraging a partner is essential, but also you are doing this on such a great level. I see you on social media, and I do follow on some videos and other podcasts that you have been on. So you are doing really, really great things out there. So yeah, a good tip or an advice for like a couple of advices for people who are trying to raise capital and moving on to bigger deals, just like myself, right? I'm also trying to move to a bigger deal, like over 100 units, which I'm working on right now. But yes, people would love to listen to that, how and what key things to keep in mind and how to attract them.
Great question, Harsh. And you said a key word, attract them. You need to attract them. I look at myself like a magnet, and I want to attract opportunities. And so sometimes it's burrs, things I don't want, not like a burr. Like sometimes I attract everything. This is the truth. Most people that capital raise don't take it seriously enough. And I can tell this because capital raising should be the only thing you're doing. You shouldn't be capital raising and looking for the property and running the numbers and looking for the insurance company to get and looking through insurance policies and reconciling numbers with the contractor and doing the books and running the asset and fixing the and. You should just be capital raising. If you're not just capital raising and obviously doing something else in the GP, like you can't just be a capital raiser in a general partnership. You need to help run the asset, but it can just be like, I'm just investor relations. So that's it, and capital raising. So first mistake people make is they're doing too many things and they're not paying enough attention to capital raising. It's tougher than people think. And the second mistake that people make with capital raising is they don't set aside marketing money. No, there is no successful company out there that did not spend money on marketing.
Oh yeah, substantial amounts.
A substantial amount, yeah. If you don't have money aside for marketing, you're not taking it seriously enough.
Yes.
So this could include buying Marston's program for how to raise capital, or any other program or any other coaching. This could include hosting a website, paying for a marketing company to revamp your website, perhaps and give you more of a branding situation. For me personally, I hire VAs, marketers, I have content creators that create my social content, and they're very consistent with it.
Yes.
I have people kind of giving me scripts for reels, and I work off them, and it's just, it's an investment, so, and number 3, this is the biggest mistake that people don't make, is they're not posting daily reels. They're not utilizing their social media the way it should be. Their
Yes.
social media is unorganized. You can't, they haven't picked a lane. They got pictures of their dog, their dinner, then a building they just acquired. It's got to be, you are the whatever you investor. I am the capital raiser. I am the multifamily investor. And that's what your social media should portray. So the reason why this is important, Harsh, is because by the time people consider doing a deal with me, and I'm on a Zoom call and we're discussing a deal, they did what you just said. You're like, I follow you on Instagram. I've watched your podcasts. Well, there's 2 touch points right there. So we're 2 steps closer to a sale. And I don't need to explain myself to you. You've already decided that you like me, you trust me, and you know you're telling me about me. So that is so important. And I feel that people are missing that piece.
Yes. Yes. I think people are not missing. I feel people are not consistent, including myself. So it's more of that one-man show thing that goes on in with many people. And I think that's why most of the people don't get to do all the things because they can't, right? What they're not able to realize is that they cannot do all the things, right? Even if like it seems written on paper, oh, it's just a social media post. It's just looking at buildings. It's just analyzing the buildings. That's just like, and doing all the tasks. It's maybe like 8 to 10 lines on a piece of paper, but that's not 8 to 10 minutes, right? It's continuous hours of work that you cannot do, right? So delegation, I think, is more and more important. And people who are able to do that, such as yourself, are able to succeed more, I would say, in a more efficient and a much faster way than the other ones. I'm not saying the others will not be successful, but it might just take them time because they're spending all their time doing all the stuff. And whereas you are just taking some time to do some of the stuff from there. And that becomes efficient, that becomes faster, that becomes consistent, right? So I think that's really a golden nugget that everyone would get from here. And I mean, yes, thank you for that. That's really great. That's really great.
Good.
Okay, so I am out. Yeah, do you want to talk anything about the mindset of how you control yourself? Because I'm pretty sure there are bad days, right? So so how do you go about working on your mindset and being always like having the motivation to push yourself and being always consistent in everything? I know there are people, but I know there are bad tenants too. And there are bad days too, where it's not about up. It's also about going down a little and then stabilizing and then going up again, right? So on that period of time, a little bit tips on mindset. How do you maintain that? And what's the biggest takeaway for all the listeners?
Great question. Great question. In 2017, I had a tenant that was living in one of my units that I had just created. It was just starting out. And she hadn't paid rent for 5 months. There were 5 months in the hole. And the problem is that I had just gotten my second real estate property and I was holding both these mortgages now, which was unexpected. It almost broke me, Harsh. I was almost broken. I went to the landlord tenant board hearing to evict this tenant after 5 months of non-payment, and I lost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I lost because there was a clerical error. I didn't hire a paralegal. And so I put the month from the 1st to the 1st, but it should have been the 1st to the 31st. And that was good enough to throw the whole thing out just from a clerical error on the paper. Yeah, welcome to Ontario in dealing with tenants, right? So that was my first like introduction into real estate. And growing up, I saw my mom and I saw my dad consume themselves with thought and worry. And I always told myself that they're just torturing themselves, because if you look around, everything was fine. The sun was out, life was great, but yet they were sitting there with their head in their hands, worrying, and life was awful. It was mental torture. We could really torture ourselves. So I've been on a mission to free myself of thought. And I've discovered a disciple, his name is Eckhart Tolle. And I read a book called A New Earth.
Oh,
And
yes, absolutely.
changed my perspective. Oh, you have that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just looking. I do have that book, but it's not in. Okay, maybe it's in the other room. Yeah, no, The Power of Now. So I have The Power of Now here.
Yeah.
I
Show,
have
show it to your audience. Do you have it?
Oh, yeah. Here.
Yes.
This is a really great book.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So when you can detach yourself from any identity, you stop comparing yourself to people. How many doors do I have? I should be at doing more. You should see my day. It's not hustling. I don't wake up and get to hustle. I'm envious of people that do that. I have a very relaxed day. I don't know if I'm doing it right or not, but I can tell you this, that I am at peace right now. I've discovered inner peace. I'm not torturing myself with impulsive thinking, I've found freedom, and I'm rich for that. So I highly encourage everyone to consider next time you're waiting in a lineup to not pull out your phone to try and pass that time, because that's the very essence of life itself. You should take that moment that you're waiting and first of all, accept what is. Yes, the lineup's big. Yes, they should have another teller to make things go quicker, but things shouldn't be like this. This should be like this. Those are it's not a great mindset to have. So next time you're in a lineup, I encourage everyone to not grab their phones, accept what is, and just observe the moment.
Yes.
It's too boring for us. That's the problem. So we're trying to get to the next moment, but we're missing life. So I think everyone should start here.
Absolutely. That's a great piece of advice. And that's what I've also figured out, that people think successful people work more. And I think successful people actually leave the unnecessary things and just focus on few things. And that's how they grow, right? Because they tend to delegate more, because that's how they gain on time. Otherwise, you just spending time for doing everything yourself.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's how they become lighter as well, right?
Yeah. I'm so glad you have that book. Then here you go. My cat needs a window. My favorite book was A New Earth. That one was
Yes, I have that too, but it's just in the other room.
Yeah, that was a good one. So
I
gift that.
like the other book. Have you heard about Dr. Joe Dispenza
No.
or Dr. Wayne Dyer?
No.
Oh, okay, so The Power of Intention and Becoming Supernatural.
Well, that's great. I'll write that down.
Really great books.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that was a really great set of information for everyone, Nick. I really appreciate that. And people, if you do have any questions, we will be posting the links in everything in the description, and how to reach out to Nick. If you have any questions, you want to reach out to Nick, just please go ahead and reach him out. We'll be posting this video soon. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for creating this wonderful platform for other investors. I hope this is a success, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.